You're listening to Remotely One, a podcast that educates, entertains, and inspires you to take your life back from the office commute. I'm Rick, a former beer rep who left the warehouse to become a voice actor and digital creator.
And I'm Kaleem, a remote work advocate and consultant. We're going to speak with some of the top professionals who have managed to avoid the commute as they share stories from the most inspiring to the most comical, all while working remotely.
Man, this sounds awesome. Let's clock in.
I moved to Europe after graduating from getting my degree and started spitting rhymes on the street to support myself.
Here we go. Here we go. This is what we're looking for. What do you mean spitting rhymes on the street?
In the process, I met my wife, who's French, and lived a life there for about 5 years in Germany.
So you became a French rapper?
No, I was an English rapper and singer in a band, but I was in Germany. Yeah, but don't ask me to sing because I ain't singing.
Oh, I mean, do you remember any of your dope ass verses? Give me something. What do you got? You remember any verse?
Oh yeah, I remember a lot. Man, it's been a while though. Diction, unpredictable flows of nonfiction. I present like a pro. May I ripple your world, your fingers and your toes. Vibrate cycles of sine waves that smile out woes like the sand in the dunes in the desert in rows. Rolling cycles of sand ebbs, crests, and flows. Yes, I'd like every man on the planet to know. And each one, I have a bunch of shit, but I don't particularly want to.
Okay, son.
Rap,
You're in there. You're in there. All right, cool.
Welcome back to Remotely One. I'm your guest co-host, Josh Morse, joined by my esteemed colleague, Colleen Clarkson.
What's happening, man? What you up to?
Good to see you again, man. Thanks for the invite. Good to be back.
Look at that beard, though. That beard looks lovely. It's filling in nice.
I started putting the nuts and berries back in because I'm going back to Maine clean, so I have to have that really full beard look to be accepted back across the border.
Shit, what the hell is in that? Is that an ultra perm? Nah, yeah. Just juices and betties? Just juices and betties? Shit, ain't nothing but ultra perm.
So since you know how to find us now, do us a favor and go to ratethispodcast.com/remotely1 and leave us a review. Again, it's ratethispodcast.com/remotely1. If you could do that for us, we'd be forever thankful. Since 2015, Remotely One is one of the largest communities of remote work professionals with over 3,000 Slack members and 5,000 email members. It's free to join, so go check it out at remotely1.com. With that, I will throw it your way, Colleen, and you can tell us about today's esteemed guest.
Oh, gosh, Mr. Morris, I get real nervous when we have guests like this that are just really intimidating. I mean, bro, what type of person could just rock a fedora and still look pimp? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, you asked me yesterday to co-host, and I went to his LinkedIn page and saw the fedora and immediately started sweating. I had to change shirts.
I mean, for a moment there, I was like, "Dog, this is a brother over here, man. Your brother got his fedora on. I mean, dang." So our guest today, Mr. Morris, is originally from, I'm going to try to pronounce this, Ogden, Utah. Is that right, guess? Ogden?
Ogden.
Utah.
Ogden. I'm going to use that one going forward.
He's also notorious for screwing up people's hometowns. There's another episode which I will replay for you. It's hilarious.
Hey, listen, it's not about me, okay? It's about our guest. But our guest also currently resides in the Bay, okay, aka San Francisco. For all you people over the pond that may not know what the Bay is, let's see, what else? Oh, Mr. Morris, this is something about our guest that just blows my mind. Our guest knows some shits. They got some brains and some thoughts. They graduated from the University of Utah in the most important degree in the world, philosophy. They got that BS in philosophy.
I don't think anyone on your show has had as much knowledge as this guest has. So,
I mean, there's been a lot. I don't know about how much because, philosophy, I'm pretty sure we're going to find out. I mean, his ass was definitely broke for a minute. I'll tell you that. But he got his master's. He wasn't done, though. He wasn't done. He's like, I want to learn some more shit. gets his master's in literature. Okay. Oh wait, I'm not done yet. I need to learn some more stuff. Then he goes back and gets his master's in business. Whew. So yes, our guest knows some stuff. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, after that, he decides to kind of save the world a little bit. So not only is he an educator and he just learns everything, he decides to then go overseas and teach the troops overseas as a faculty member of the University of Utah. Oh no, University of Maryland. Is that right, guest?
Yep.
7 years. So he's overseas teaching our troops philosophy. Man, I gotta do something. Not only that, Mr. Morse, our guest, they moved to Europe. Most people don't know this, but our guest, they moved to Europe to bust out some dope rhymes for the people in the streets. Our guest was an MC where they met his now French wife. So it worked out.
Must have been a good show.
I mean, he already busted some rhymes for us in the pre-shows. Last but not least, he's now the founder and CEO of Post Planner, which is a social media scheduling platform. Listeners and viewers, please give a warm welcome to Josh Parkinson! Let's go! We love you, Josh! We're getting crazy. Settle down, studio. Settle down. They can't help it. Thank you for coming, Josh.
Hey, man. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, man. So we got so much stuff to get into, man. Your resume is impressive. Your product's impressive. That's how we connected. But I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Morse. Mr. Morse, kick it off with our first interview question. It's real deep.
Can you take us back to the beginning of your career? What was it about philosophy that had you so intrigued?
Oh, man. That's a big question. I mean, I just loved literature from the get-go. I loved thinking about the big questions in life, and from junior high onward. And once I started college, I just gravitated toward those kind of classes, and my friends were into it as well, and we like to have those deep conversations and read the classic stuff. And yeah, one thing led to another, and I just wanted this to continue, and I still continue to this day to really dive into that stuff. So,
It's cool.
Josh, I got a question for you. So, who's your favorite philosopher? I mean, you studied all that time, you taught it. You got to have one or two.
I was really into Nietzsche in college, and ended up writing my senior thesis on him. I still am a big fan. But
what's Nietzsche about? I don't know this guy.
He's a German philosopher from the 19th century.
All right.
Existential philosopher, super deep, all about individualism, and at least that's what I thought was the most important thing. But I haven't really been into Nietzsche for a while. Recently, I've really gotten into David Deutsch. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's written a couple of books in the last 20 years that are just mind blowing. And those are the two I'd name right now.
Pretty cool.
They didn't have any classes about Nietzsche at Worcester State, Colleen?
Worcester State University is a quality institution, sir. Okay, I didn't take one philosophy class because I'm too deep as it is. You know what I mean?
There you go.
I was too deep. Like Snoop Dogg was my philosopher, and he still is.
The second question I had was, what was the spark that led you to create Post Planner?
Well, I would say that during my MBA, I started kind of interning at a venture capital fund in
Nice.
Salt Lake City. And I just really discovered the whole startup world there. I didn't really know much about it at all before then, how it all worked. And so that's really when I first got the, idea that, okay, this is the ecosystem, this is how it works. And that was this was in 2009-ish. So
Wow.
that was right around the time when Facebook was really coming up and social media was coming up. And yeah, and once I graduated and actually moved out here to San Francisco, I just knew that I wanted to, do some kind of software startup. And at the time, I was kind of doing a agency type business where I was creating Facebook pages for businesses. This is right when Facebook pages were starting as a thing. And, I started noticing that there are apps to do various things on Facebook pages. And that led me to think, okay, well, why don't I create an app to do this or that? And originally, I wanted to have a whole suite of apps that do all kinds of stuff on Facebook. And the first one was going to be a scheduling app for posts. And that just turned out to be the one I stuck with and became Post Planner. And, and now we're here 13 years later and still doing it.
It's awesome.
Wow, bro. That's crazy. So like, do you recall any other products that were out at that time? I mean, you're talking 2009. It's pretty damn early as far as scheduling is. What was it like? Hootsuite or something, some shit like that. Like, what was
Yeah,
available
yeah.
back then?
Hootsuite was there. Buffer had just started, and those are still the two of the biggest competitors that I have. But there were, back then it was all about, they were trying to convince businesses to create basically their own website in a way on Facebook,
Mm,
on their Facebook page, and a lot of businesses were going in that direction where, they'd kind of duplicate their website inside of Facebook on their Facebook page. So there were these things called tab applications where you could create tabs on your Facebook page and then, you know, add HTML and CS, HTML to it and create a website. And
wow.
that kind of went away in a couple of years. It was really, really big from 2010, 2011, and then it kind of started to fade away in 2012, 2013, 2014. And you still have, obviously, Facebook pages are still huge, but they're not really destinations anymore. They're just ways to send content to the feed because the feed became paramount after 2011, 2012.
Yep.
But yeah, those are the kind of businesses that were being started at the time inside Facebook. And Facebook was, the number one pretty much from that point forward. Now Postminer posts to 8 different social networks, but we started on Facebook, and Facebook's still our big. Most of our users, their main thing is Facebook. Instagram's
Mm,
kind of a close second, but it's definitely still Facebook's the one.
that's pretty cool. So let me ask you: you're a philosopher. You have a philosophy degree. You go back to San Francisco. How the hell did you get started? I mean, did you teach yourself how to code, or did you say, "Nah, I'm not even going down that route"? Like, so how did you handle the technical aspect of post planning in the early days?
That's a pretty interesting story. I had ideas for various apps to do, and one of the first ones, I had a connection with a person who was in like local politics in Utah, and all these politicians were starting to come onto Facebook as well. Start their Facebook pages,
Yep, yep.
and I'm talking about local legislators. And my first idea was to do like a kind of app that would allow them to poll their constituents and get their opinions on various political issues. And I basically went to Facebook and looked around for apps that were doing something similar in functionality. And I found one, and that happened to be created by this guy in Bulgaria. And I reached out to him to see if he wanted to, I don't know, kind of partner with me to provide this service to these politicians. And he said yes. And he became my co-founder, my technical
Ah,
co-founder for Post
okay.
Planner. He's the one who built the original version of Post Planner. And still my entire dev team to this day is in Bulgaria. And really, I met them all through Slav, who was my co-founder. Slav's no longer with Post Planner, but he's always a friend of Post Planner, and he's got his own startups now. But that was the original story.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of a good bit of advice for business founders who are looking for technical co-founders is go out and see, find applications, software that's kind of in the corners and not really successful, and reach out to the founder and say, hey, I have an idea about how we can improve your software. I'm a business guy, I'm a marketing guy, I think we can do something together. It's a good way, instead of just being, the typical thing is that you have a business idea and then you're going to go out and you're going to try to convince some technical guy to help you. Often you can kind of go the opposite direction and find something they've already created and then sell them on the fact that you can help make this big and transform the product as well.
Yeah, it's good advice. Gotta have a technical person.
So you started in 2009. You've obviously rode the wave of COVID and remote work and all the fun things that have happened to all of us.
Yeah.
How did, because this show is obviously ultimately about remote work, how did remote work impact you, and how did, COVID, all those things that happened kind of impact you throughout the business growth?
Man, COVID didn't affect my business at all, except for positively. We have been 100% remote from day one. As I mentioned, my co-founder was in Bulgaria, and
Mm.
the only way we could work is online remotely.
So it was remote by force, basically. Like you needed to
Yeah,
find
and
talent.
yeah, it's true. Yeah, and it's still a great way to go is to go overseas and find, like it's just so much more economical to hire technical guys in Eastern Europe or around the world than it is to hire someone. I never could have afforded. I still can't afford to pay an engineer from San Francisco or even in the US or in, Western Europe. It's just way too expensive. So yeah, when COVID happened, there's nothing changed in the operations of my company. It just kept on going, and it really in fall or spring of 2020 and summer 2020, we had a wave of a lot of signups because it drove, I think, a lot of people you know to try new marketing channels and try new things, and social media marketing was one of those, and Post Planner benefited from that wave.
Yeah, for sure. There are a lot of return to offices, and there are a lot of headlines ever since March of 20. It seems like there's just been this conflict between employee and employer. Got a taste of something that a lot of people enjoy, the
For
flexibility, the
sure.
autonomy, right? And then now, post 5 years or so, 4 years or whatever, and it's like we're seeing a lot of organizations kind of return back to the things that they're most comfortable with, right? And 'cause
Hmm.
organizational change is never easy, especially if you're a larger company. So my question to you is like a lot of startups do kind of follow what is being done by the larger companies, especially out there in San Francisco, and you might have a much better view on this than I do, right? Like you have Salesforce
Hmm.
saying, no, we're all going back to the office, so
Yep.
some startups who get funding and things like that may kind of fall into this. Where do you actually see this kind of thing heading as far as remote work, even hybrid work in the startup space moving forward? I mean, you're right there in San Francisco. You must be seeing San Francisco and New York are still the two largest cities with the lowest return to office percentage.
Yeah, San Francisco by far.
Yeah, where do you see this happening, man? Where do you see this going?
I mean, to a certain degree, I don't really care what the big corporations do.
Kudos.
I don't really have an opinion whether it's the better thing for their businesses or not. It might be. I know it's not what I want to do in my business. I've crafted the culture of Post Planner to be so easy and lifestyle friendly for my team
Interesting.
that we literally don't even have meetings anymore. We used to meet once every 2 weeks for a sprint call, to discuss the upcoming sprint.
Yep. Yep.
But we decided to even axe that and just
Wow.
do it as a thread in Slack because it's not really. We don't want to be on the phone. We don't want to be on a call unless we absolutely have to be. And me as the CEO and owner of the company, I never want to be on calls. I didn't even want to be on this call today with you guys, but I'm doing it.
Baby, I love it. With the
So, like,
fedora on. I see
dude,
you.
when I wake up in the morning and I have a call that day, I'm depressed, man. I'm like, shit, I have to get on. I got to get on this podcast at 11:30. It kind of what? All right, damn. All right, I'll do it. Like I don't, I don't want to be on any calls. I don't want to have any calls on my calendar ever. So,
Good for you, man. Like, why? Where did that come from?
well, a few things. I personally, I don't think I ever work well. I work more efficiently when I'm in a room with other people or on calls with other people than I do when I'm alone.
Research says that focus you have
Yeah.
high concentration is alone. So you're right.
Yeah, like when you're around people or you're on calls, it's great for the social side of it. But in the end, you devote so much energy to the kind of social interactions that it really makes you much less efficient, in my opinion.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
and you know what? I mean, this is obviously it's not for everyone, but I want my team because I know they're the same. Well, they don't want to get on calls either. You know,
mm,
at their time, it's like we're doing a call at 9 a.m. in California, and in Bulgaria, it's like 7 p.m. You know, dinner time. They don't want to be on a call, and I'm trying to, and I think what we have done this that we like they couldn't get a better lifestyle at another company, right? Like they know that I trust them. We've worked together for years. I'm never going to make them get on a stupid call that they don't need to be on. And I trust them so they get the work done, and the work is is obvious. It's in the results. Like the tool either has these improvements that come through or it doesn't. It's obvious if they're working or not. So they don't have to pretend. There's none of that. And my goal is like I don't want to lose these guys to other companies. And I can't really compete with a lot of companies when it comes to how much they can get paid. I'm sure all my guys could get paid more if they moved to another company, but they wouldn't get the lifestyle they get with Post Planner. They wouldn't get no meetings ever, and a real chill boss who doesn't expect bullshit from them.
mm,
So
mm.
That's an
yeah, it's a
interesting
roundabout
that's an
of
interesting
answering it.
pitch for like employment. I mean, like there's so many people like trying to find people to work. There's a group of people that are like, shit, I don't want to be in meetings all day. I want a guy that
Yeah,
also appreciates that and like lives by it. So I think that's an interesting way to recruit, man. I love that.
yeah. One of my best buddies here, he works in education, and he spends his entire day on calls. Like,
Most people
just
do. Most
yeah,
most organizations
yeah.
do. I mean, like,
Zoom all day long, with 10 faces on the screen. And it's just like, it kind of blows my mind. I'm like, first of all, like, that sounds miserable to me. And second of all, how is that
when do you do the
productive?
work? Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
I think for certain organizations, like if you're a sales organization, you have to be on Zoom a lot to present. But I think
I get that. Yeah.
but you bring up an interesting point. Like I always think about this, and Kaleem and I have talked about this. The only philosophical conversations we have are about remote work, Josh. But the philosophical point I think here is no one has time to actually just sit back and think about the work that they're doing and think about
Mm.
the next day, the next idea, how things went, just like in strategy, just in general. But it sounds like you've put in place an environment that's pretty open to that. That's awesome. It's great.
Yeah, it works.
Kudos to you.
Thank you.
I was looking at your profile, Josh, before we started the call, and the experience that you had. I think you mentioned this earlier, but it was with startups, and how did that help? So it looked like you were behind the scenes, like looking at how startups got funded and the types of
Hmm.
questions they get asked and the diligence and all those things. I've been a part of that with the three startups that
Yep.
I've been at. How did that help formulate your plan as you move forward with your startup? Like, what were like some of the tidbits that you grabbed that you're like, man, I gotta make sure I have this together when I start my plan here?
Well, I mean, it just taught me how the whole ecosystem works, but it also showed me, I also knew that it's not the only way to go. I mean,
Mm.
Post Planner, we never got VC funding. We never even got really angel funding. We've been funded by customer credit cards, as I like to say, from day one, right?
It's good.
Uh,
Well done.
so
Congratulations.
yeah, bootstrapped.
Yeah.
So yeah, I learned how that all works, but I got to say, I don't think I'm not sure I learned anything in business school that, I explicitly applied to my business. Business is common sense, dude. It's trial and error. It's common sense. It's the ability to learn quickly.
Hmm.
It's the ability to see what's working, to communicate with customers, try to build things that bring value to their lives. It's not rocket science. It's a lot of hard work. And yeah, I'm skeptical that experience did anything other than give me a window into possibilities, right? I'm looking at these companies, various types of companies, from software to, software as a service, to like biotech, to all kinds of things. And some of them, they can't even exist without VC, right? They have to have funding to get off the ground. But a SaaS business like Post Planner doesn't. I mean, you just need to get some customers from day one and get them paying you, and start getting feedback from them and building what helps them. So yeah, that's how I'd answer that. I think it was a great experience. I really enjoyed it, and was a really good thing to do right before coming to San Francisco, because as you can imagine, this whole peninsula is just, driven by that whole ecosystem. Uh, but in the end, I didn't end up using it.
It's
I
good.
just bootstrapped to my startup, and it was fine. But I got
What
to say, I mean, I couldn't have done that without my wife, like, because in the early days, we had very little revenue, obviously, and we had to build it up. It took 2 years really to get to the point where, I was making good money. And yeah, my beautiful French wife supported me in those 2 years.
well, bonjour, mademoiselle. Très bien. Très bien, mademoiselle. Um, you know, it seems like though that experience in school did help you
Yeah.
because it made you realize VC funding, it's great for certain people. And but it probably made you realize, wow, you're giving up a lot. A lot.
Hey, life's trade-offs, Like, I have a bunch of friends here in the city who did take VC, and many of them are, 10 times as wealthy as I am now, you know? So
But it's
I'm
not
not
all about
saying that,
wealth, right? It's not all about
yes,
wealth. Like
it's
Post
true.
Planner is your baby. Post Planner was something that you came up with. Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
emotion attached to a business that you create, and for some
And it's
people,
lifestyle,
yeah,
like we talked about. Uh,
some people want to sell it. I do have one last question, kind of jumping a little bit back to you thinking about work asynchronously, because I think a lot of people, when they hear you say, I can't stand meetings and I don't even want to be on a call, probably blows people's minds that you can run a company that's competing against Buffer, that's competing against, Hootsuite, that like you're competing. I
mhm.
left Buffer for you. Sorry, Buffer. But like the reality
Good
is
move.
like you're competing because you're providing a lifestyle to your employees and other things. But then you also said, hey, look, I want to get rid of this typical way of working that most people know. What were some of your biggest challenges, or what are some of your biggest challenges of being completely asynchronous? Like, if somebody's going to make the switch, tell me what I have to be concerned about. Like, what do I have to be concerned about if I'm like, you know what, I'm done with meetings?
I mean, it all comes down in business, it all comes down to the people you work with.
Yeah.
You got to get a team together that where this works, that you trust each other. Really, trust is number one. You can't really do what we're doing if I couldn't do what I'm doing if I was constantly worried about, oh, this guy's pretending to work and not really working, and this guy's free riding and he's getting paid. Like, I have zero patience for that right now. At this point, and I don't need to worry about it at all with my team.
Mm,
And it's and that's a hard place to get to. It's not easy to find those kind of people and assemble a team that kind of all agrees that this is the kind of lifestyle and work environment and culture that they want to be in. Some people love office politics and going to the water cooler and going to the office every day. I get that. It's a different kind of lifestyle. But what I wanted to say is that I think that when you talk about asynchronous work, for me, I think that in terms of the kind of business I'm in, creating software and really what I'm doing is I'm creating software and I'm creating marketing. That's it, right? I'm
mm,
building
mhm.
a software product and I'm trying to get people to use it. And those two things, in my opinion, really work well with asynchronous
Yeah.
communication.
Yeah.
You have these goals, you have these tasks that you need to do. You got to build, some campaign. You got to build a new feature in the app. You got to describe that new feature so that your engineers can build it. These things, you don't need meetings for these things, in my
Right.
opinion.
It's all documentation.
You need threads. Like you need a thread in Slack where you can talk about it. I think humans tend to communicate more precisely when they write than when they talk.
Hmm.
And, it kind of is a way to, I think written communication kind of weeds out a lot of fat bullshit,
Miscommunication. Yeah.
and I think that lends itself well to the kind of work that we do. Like you said, sales, all kinds of other businesses, it wouldn't work. Definitely wouldn't claim that this is for all businesses, but I really do prefer asynchronous work. I love to like wake up in the morning and have a couple key things that I want to do that day, and like sit back on my couch and really focus and
Done.
and kill it, write out exactly what I need to do. And no one's there to look over my shoulder. No one's there to distract me. I don't have to ask them, my coworkers, how was the weekend, and all this kind of stuff. Like I have friends for that. I don't need to do that with my coworkers. With my coworkers, I just want to like get the job done and get us all paid at the end of the day, so that we can go out with our friends and our family and talk about the weekend and talk about what you're interested in and all this stuff. I don't want to do that in the business environment, and I know my team doesn't either. So
Hmm.
we don't even have we don't even have off sites in post platinum. I know that a lot of SaaS companies, they all bring the whole crew together for some big trip, and I'm sure that's cool. I'm sure that they have a good time, but I'm just saying that we have not done it, and I don't think it's really hurt our morale or our teamwork. We did talk a little bit about, when we first started, and this is only about 6 months old, that we completely ended all calls, like bi-weekly calls. We all kind of said it when we did that, oh, well, this could be, a little bit dangerous. Maybe if we never hear each other's voices, that, might be over a long period of time, it might be degrading to our relationships. And the jury's still out on that. But so far, it just really hasn't made a difference. It's just made it even easier for all of us. Now they don't have to skip a dinner once every 2 weeks to jump on a call,
Hmm.
when they could just write down everything in a thread. So
Awesome. Awesome. So it sounds like trust, asynchronous work, trust. You got to be able to measure whether they're getting the job done. I would say as long as you
yep,
have those things there, right? Because software work is, you have tickets so you can see what's being done. You can see what's being worked on.
yep,
No matter what task you have as a business, as long as you can figure out a way to measure whether they're getting the job done, that includes sales, because you have sales numbers, you have number of calls, you have
yeah,
all sorts of things that you can utilize to determine whether they're meeting their objectives. So as long as you have something like that and you trust your employees, it sounds like asynchronous work can work for you. So I appreciate you kind of go over that. Mr. Morris, Josh, we're at the point of the show. It's all you, Mr. Morris.
Tell us about a comical or inspiring moment in remote work, asynchronous work.
I don't have a really comical story so much. I do have a pretty interesting one where, I told you about my co-founder Slav. I met
Okay.
him online on
Right.
Facebook in 2011. Let's say it was like February of 2011, and
Mm-hmm.
I never met him in person until what, 3.5 ish years later,
Okay.
and he came to San Francisco. He flew into San Francisco because he wanted to go to Burning Man, and so I had to go pick him up from SFO, the airport, and it was such a strange feeling. I was super nervous. Probably a lot of people can relate to this, where, someone that you've worked with for a while online and you meet them in person for the first time. It's always a little bit awkward, a little bit, you're a little bit nervous. But I went there to the airport, and man, he was late. He was so late. His plane was like 3 hours late. So I sat there and I was nervous when I got there. And I sat there for 3 hours, like being nervous, and it sucked so bad. And he finally walked out, and he turns out I didn't realize how tall he was. He's like this huge dude. And I'm like, yo, what's up? And we hit it off pretty well. We jumped in my car and we drove out. At that time, we had an office in this little town south of San Francisco called Pacifica. It's a little beach town. And so we drove out to the beach, and we stopped at a cool restaurant and had some food. And we started, bonding in a way that you can't really do remotely. And it was cool. But it was definitely,
So did you go to Burning
extreme.
Man?
He did. I had gone to Burning Man the year before. So he came in and he went to Burning Man. And then he came back the next year again and went to Burning Man again with his new girlfriend, who now is his wife. And they have like 4 kids.
Awesome.
So it worked out. But yeah, that's the experience.
Pretty cool.
So where can our listeners find you?
Hey, go to postplanner.com first of all and sign up for the most powerful tool
Get it
in social media.
Get it.
And, as far as me, honestly, I'm not really that online. I do have a Twitter account at fatehacker.com or fatehacker at fatehacker. But, I don't really post much. I'm kind of I lay low. All my social relations are right here around me. So I just build really good software and then that's it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Morris, for being a guest co-host today. Where can our listeners find you, Mr. Morris?
Soon to be a new handle and website. I will have to get that information to you when it is fully formed, but new co is coming.
Nice.
Okay, cool. New co it is.
Yep.
Remember that. And you know what? You can find him right now, Josh Morris on LinkedIn. Look him up. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you both, Joshes. Josh is squared. Josh is in my life. Awesome, man. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.
You've been listening to Remotely One. Visit us at remotely1.com/podcast for upcoming episodes. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and download our episodes on your favorite podcast app.
Hey, don't forget to clock out.